Chaos consumed Arcadia Station. Every corner seemed to pulse with a new rhythm, an irregular heartbeat threatening its fragile balance. After the explosive revelation of Damian Voss's crimes, screens across the station, from the elite sectors to the impoverished zones, displayed his vast scheme of corruption and illegal use of alien technology. The leaked images and documents had sparked a wave of outrage in the streets, especially in the lower levels, where residents were already on the brink of rebellion. Solis staggered through one of those streets. Her legs trembled with exhaustion and pain, each step feeling heavier than the last. She felt the weight of her injuries, her body battered from the recent confrontation with Voss, but her mind refused to rest. There was too much to do, and time was not on her side. The station was collapsing. The alien core, the mysterious and powerful energy source powering Arcadia, was destabilizing. Without immediate action, Arcadia wouldn't just figuratively fall, but it could literally plummet from the sky, crushing what remained of Earth beneath its debris. Marla, the exiled former security officer, walked beside Kara, her eyes scanning the crowds with almost mechanical efficiency. Her movements were precise, always prepared for an emergency. Marla was tall, with an imposing presence, her years in the security service etched into every visible scar on her face. She kept a firm arm around Kara, supporting some of the engineer's weight. Next to them, Yannick, the young, nervous, and brilliant hacker, kept his head down, avoiding eye contact with the protesters crowding the streets. The lower level of the station was a maze of tight, grimy corridors, with exposed pipes and noisy ventilation systems. The air reeked of burnt oil and short-circuiting electricity. Groups of desperate residents huddled around small, makeshift generators, trying to squeeze out as much energy as they could before total system failure. But even with the chaos, there was something more unsettling in the air, the despair of those who knew they were about to lose everything. "We need to reach the hideout," Marla said firmly, pushing a few protesters aside to clear a path. Her vigilant eyes stayed alert for any sign of danger. "Things are spiraling out of control. If we stay out here much longer, we won't survive the night." Karen nodded slowly, feeling fatigue invade her bones. Her mind, though exhausted, remained alert, turning over the data she had seen, the system failures, and the looming danger over everyone. The alien core. Everything depended on it, and Voss's fall had only complicated things. The core was unstable, and no one knew just how severe the situation was. Is he still alive?" Kara managed to ask, her voice weak and shaky. Yannick glanced at her briefly without stopping. "Voss? Probably detained by his own guards, but I'm not sure. His security system is still operational in some areas." "Do you think he's still a threat?" "It doesn't matter if he's alive or not," Marla replied coldly. "What matters is that the station is about to collapse. And if we don't act, everyone here will die, including us." Her words hung in the air like a sentence. Kara knew Marla was right. Arcadia's energy was no longer a matter of convenience or comfort. Without the alien technology, which was clearly deteriorating, the station's propulsion system would fail, and Arcadia would be dragged back to Earth's surface. A slow, painful death awaited them all. Explosions of unrest echoed through the station's corridors like distant thunder. People, driven by fear and desperation, were turning on each other, looting whatever they could and fighting for supplies. Kara looked around, feeling deep sadness as she witnessed society's collapse. She knew she was on the edge of something monumental, something that could alter the course of history. But what lay ahead was uncertain, dark. They reached the hideout, a small chamber hidden deep within the lower levels. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss, temporarily isolating them from the chaos outside. The room was dim, illuminated only by the glow of a few computer screens. Tarek, the team's mechanic, was already waiting. He looked at the group with concern, but mainly at Kara. "Is she okay?" he asked, rising from an improvised chair. His expression was tense, and deep circles under his eyes revealed his accumulated exhaustion. He approached Kara, helping her carefully into one of the chairs. "You took longer than I expected," Things are getting worse by the minute out there. She'll survive, Marla said as she stretched, trying to relieve the tension in her shoulders. But that can wait. We need to talk about the alien core. It's falling apart. Tarek nodded grimly. I've been monitoring the system. The core is on the verge of collapse. The overload is evident across all levels. If we don't reduce energy consumption, the core will explode. And if that happens, well, you know what it means? The silence that followed was nearly unbearable. Everyone understood what was at stake. We can redirect power from non-essential sectors, Yannick suggested while typing quickly on his portable terminal. But that means cutting power from the luxury areas. They won't take that well. Kara, despite the pain throbbing in her ribs, lifted her head with determination. They have no choice, she said. If we don't do this, there won't be a station left. They need to understand. Marla shook her head, skeptical. Do you really think the leaders of the upper levels will allow their luxurious lives to be interrupted? They'll let us die down here before they make any sacrifice. It doesn't matter, Kara replied, her voice firm despite her suffering. We have to do it. If the alien core collapses, we all die. I won't let my sister's sacrifice be in vain. Tarek began typing on the console in front of him, energy graphs filling the screen. If we're going to do this, we have to act fast. The core is already in critical condition. As the group laid out their plan, fear and uncertainty hung in the air. Time was short, and what lay ahead would be the greatest test of their lives. The echo of distant protests reverberated through the narrow corridors of Arcadia Station. Although they had temporarily escaped the chaos in the streets, Kara knew the true danger was still ahead. As the group rested briefly in the hideout, the tension in the air was palpable. Each of them felt the weight of responsibility pressing on their shoulders. Saving Arcadia would not only require technical skill, it would demand courage and perhaps unimaginable sacrifices. Tarek was typing frantically at the terminal, his fingers flying over the keyboard at a nearly frenetic pace. With each second, new graphs appeared on the screens, displaying the station's energy flows. All of them centered on one point, the alien core. Since Voss had installed this mysterious technology, Arcadia had relied on it to keep everything running. However, the core was now on the verge of failure, its alien systems behaving unpredictably. We have to shut down some of the luxury sectors, Tarek said without taking his eyes off the screen. Reduce energy demand and redirect it to stabilize the core. There's no other solution. Kara, sitting in a chair in the corner of the room, rubbed her face as she struggled to organize her thoughts. Her ribs still ached from recent injuries, and exhaustion weighed heavily on her body, but her mind remained sharp. She knew Tarek was right. The elite, who had taken refuge in the gleaming towers of the upper levels, would have to face a harsh reality. Their luxurious life had to be sacrificed to save everyone. Do you think they'll let that happen? Yannick asked, his skepticism evident. They'd rather die surrounded by comfort than live with the same resources as us down here. We don't have a choice, Kara replied, her voice steady despite the pain. If the core collapses, it won't matter what level they're on. Everyone will die. Marla, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed and her eyes sharp, finally spoke. They won't give up their luxury without a fight. Voss might have fallen, but the elite are still in control. And we know how the security patrols are. They won't hesitate to take us down if they think we're interfering with the upper level's interests. The room fell silent for a moment as they all considered Marla's words. She was right. Arcadia's security guards were still loyal to the elite, and any attempt to cut power to the upper sectors would be seen as a direct threat to the status quo. Kara stood up slowly, feeling every muscle protest with the movement. We'll have to act quickly and discreetly, she said, moving toward Tarek's terminal. We need a route to the control center. That's where we can redirect the energy away from the patrol's watch. Tarek inputted a few commands into the console, and a holographic image of the station appeared before them, displaying a detailed map of Arcadia's maintenance and control systems. We can access the maintenance tunnels, he suggested, pointing to a series of underground passages stretching across the station complex. These tunnels aren't monitored since they're only used by maintenance workers. If we go through here, we can reach the control center undetected. Marla frowned, studying the map closely. Those tunnels are dangerous. They're old, poorly maintained. Any structural failure, and we could end up trapped, or worse, dead. We don't have another option, Kara insisted. If we wait any longer, there won't be time left. We need to reach the control center and divert the energy now. Yannick took a deep breath, hesitation clear on his face. And if we fail? If they catch us, well, we don't have any allies in the administration anymore. We'll be on our own. Then we need to make sure we don't fail, Marla said, her voice firm and resolute. We'll move carefully. Tarek, guide us along the safest route. Yannick, you'll handle hacking the tunnel locks. Kara, you'll prepare the energy systems once we get to the control center. We're in this together. The group agreed, fully aware that this could be their last chance to save Arcadia. The maintenance tunnels were exactly as Marla had described. Old, damp, and poorly maintained. The metal walls were rusted in several spots, and the air was heavy, smelling of old oil and mildew. Every step they took echoed through the empty corridors, creating an unsettling sound that only heightened the already tense atmosphere. Kara followed closely behind Tarek, who led the way with a navigation device in hand. They had to move quickly, but cautiously. There were rumors that parts of the tunnels were on the brink of collapse, and any mistake could leave them trapped with little hope of escape. We're almost there, Tarek murmured, looking at the device. 1 more kilometer, and we'll reach the control sector. Yannick, always nervous, glanced back from time to time, as if expecting the guards to emerge from the shadows. These tunnels are terrible. If I don't die from a guard, I'll probably die from tetanus here. Marla gave a slight smile, the first since they had left the hideout. You've always been this optimistic? Kara, despite the pain that nagged her, managed to stay focused. She knew Marla was trying to ease the tension within the group, but there was no escaping the gravity of the situation. If we can divert the energy and stabilize the core, we'll have a chance, she thought, repeating this mantra internally, as if it could dispel the growing fear of failure. Suddenly, Tarek's navigation device emitted a sharp sound. He stopped abruptly, forcing the group to be on high alert. Something was wrong. There's an anomaly up ahead, he said, pressing a few buttons to check. There's a blockage in the tunnels, something might have collapsed. Marla squinted, trying to see through the darkness ahead. Can we go around it? Tarek shook his head. No. If we try another route, we'll lose precious time. This is the only tunnel that leads directly to the control center. Kara stepped forward, ignoring the pain in her ribs. Let's see what's blocking it. If it's something we can remove, we'll keep going. We don't have time to look for alternatives. The group moved forward, their heavy breaths echoing through the tunnel. The darkness seemed to swallow everything around them, and the sense of confinement only worsened as they advanced. When they finally reached the anomaly, they found what they had feared. Part of the tunnel ceiling had collapsed, blocking almost the entire passage. Shit, Yannick muttered, staring at the twisted metal and scattered debris. This is going to slow us down. Kara examined the wreckage, quickly analyzing the situation. We need to make a narrow enough passage for us to squeeze through. If we push these metal beams aside, we might be able to get through. Tarek approached and began carefully moving the debris while Marla kept watch. Yannick, despite his nervousness, helped as much as he could. Gradually, they cleared a small gap. It wasn't much, but it would be enough for each of them to pass through, one at a time. I'll go first, Marla said, squeezing her body through the narrow passage. She wriggled between the twisted beams and debris, moving with the skill of someone who had faced difficult situations before. On the other side, she signaled for the others to follow. Kara was the last to pass. As she squeezed through the opening, she felt a sharp pain in her ribs, but ignored it. There were more urgent things at stake. Once she finally reached the other side, the group pressed on, more determined than ever. They were close now. The control center was just a few meters away, and the chance to save Arcadia depended on their next moves. The control center of Arcadia Station was close. Kara's group advanced cautiously through the tunnels, fully aware that they could be detected at any moment. The air in the underground corridors felt heavier now, with a metallic scent reminiscent of rust and something older, as if the walls were slowly being eroded by time and neglect. The tension was thick. They all knew that the success or failure of their mission would be decided in a matter of minutes. Tarek, leading the group with his navigation device, signaled for them to stop as they reached the entrance to a maintenance elevator. It was a small elevator, primarily used to transport parts and workers to the station's technical zones. He glanced at Kara, then at the others, and took a deep breath. "We're just one ride away from the control center," he said. "Once we go up, we'll only have a few minutes before the patrols realize something's wrong. We need to be fast." Marla positioned herself next to the elevator door, adjusting her gear and mentally preparing for what lay ahead. Her years as a security officer in Arcadia had taught her to stay alert, never underestimating her adversaries. No time for subtleties. We go in, do what we need, and get out before security can react. Yannick, as nervous as ever, tried to seem confident, but his restless gaze betrayed his true feelings. "You do realize we're about to invade the heart of the station, right? This is what's left of the elite. They'll kill us if they find out what we're doing." "If we don't do this, Yannick," Kara said, her voice low and serious, "everyone will die. There's no other option." The elevator finally arrived. The doors opened with a metallic hiss, revealing a small, claustrophobic cabin. The group squeezed into the limited space, and Tarek pressed the button that would take them to the control center. The soft sound of cables pulling the elevator upward filled the silence between them as each prepared mentally for what was to come. The control center was located in the mid-levels of Arcadia Station, the region where critical maintenance and administration zones were housed. It was the place where the elite monitored the station's energy, ensuring the power flow remained constant for their luxurious upper floors. As they ascended, the nervousness grew. They knew they would be facing not only machines but people, guards, engineers, and officers who wouldn't hesitate to stop or even kill them. Finally, the elevator stopped. The doors slid open with a soft click, and Marla was the first to step out, checking the corridor ahead. It was empty for now, but that did little to reassure them. They knew the real challenge lay ahead. "Follow me," Marla whispered, leading the group out of the elevator. They moved silently down the corridor, sticking close to the walls as they followed Tarek's directions. The control center was just a few meters away, past a series of security doors. Yannick immediately began working on the locks as soon as they arrived. "This will take a few minutes," Yannick murmured, connected to the terminal. "The security layers here are much more complex than in the tunnels." Kara scanned the corridors around them. The silence was heavy, almost oppressive. Something in her intuition told her that danger was closer than they thought. "Hurry up, Yannick. We're running out of time." Suddenly, the metallic sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. The group froze. "Guards!" Before they could react, the doors at the end of the hall burst open, revealing a team of 5 guards, armed and ready. They were protected by high-tech armor, with automatic weapons pointed directly at the group. "Drop your weapons and surrender," the leader of the guards shouted, his voice amplified by internal communicators. "You are in a restricted area. Any suspicious movement will be treated as a lethal threat." Marla instinctively positioned herself in front of Kara and Tarek, raising her hands slightly, trying to show they weren't there to attack. "We're here to save the station," she said firmly, her voice full of authority. "If you don't let us finish what we started, the entire Arcadia Station will collapse, including the upper levels. Either you let us proceed, or we all go down together." The guards hesitated but kept their weapons raised. The leader, a tall man with cold, calculating eyes, narrowed his gaze, suspicious. "You think you can threaten the system? The alien core is still under control. Any attempt to destabilize it will be treated as sabotage." Kara stepped forward, even as Marla tried to stop her. "You don't understand," she said, her voice urgent. "The core is no longer under control. Voss hid that from you, just like he hid so many other things. He used alien technology that's overloading, and if we don't stabilize the system now, everyone will die. This isn't sabotage. If we don't act, Arcadia will fall, and you and everyone else will fall with it." The guard leader stared at Kara for a long moment, his suspicious gaze softening slightly. He exchanged glances with his colleagues, who now seemed equally concerned. The fear on the guards' faces reflected the reality that the situation was far more serious than they had imagined. "I've seen the energy reports," said one of the younger guards, his voice shaky. "What she's saying, it makes sense. The energy failures aren't normal." The guard leader huffed, still hesitant. "We're not authorized to let you pass. But if what you're saying is true..." He lowered his weapon slightly, still on guard, but without the same firmness as before. "You have a few minutes. Do what you need to do, but know we'll be watching every move." Marla nodded, and the group quickly got back to work. Yannick, now without distractions, finally unlocked the security door to the control center. With a soft hiss, the door opened, revealing the vast command room. Arcadia's control center was impressive, with walls covered in holographic monitors displaying energy graphs, maps of the station, and readings from the alien core. The bluish glow of the screens illuminated the room, reflecting off Kara's pale skin as she moved toward the main terminal. The alien core pulsed at the heart of the station, a soft blue light radiating from its center, emitting a faint hum that made the air vibrate. It was clearly overloaded, and the readings on the terminal confirmed that it was minutes away from reaching a critical point. Kara sat at the terminal and began working frantically. Her hands flew across the keyboard as she tried to redirect energy from the luxury sectors to stabilize the core. The process was complex and risky. Any mistake could cause a catastrophic failure. "The core is unstable," Kara said, her face tense with concentration. "We need to divert energy from the upper levels now." Tarek, monitoring the readings beside her, nodded. "If we can redirect about 30% of the energy, the core should stabilize long enough for us to make emergency repairs." Kara typed furiously into the terminal, adjusting the systems and rerouting the energy as planned. The energy graph's lights began to flicker, indicating that the process was working. But then, something unexpected happened. The terminal emitted a sharp alert, and the alien core's readings began to change rapidly. Instead of stabilizing, the core seemed to be adapting, as if it was reacting to the energy redirection. "Something's wrong," Tarek said, looking at the graphs with concern. "The core isn't just stabilizing, it's changing. Karafronit. This doesn't make sense. What's happening?" Before they could process what was going on, the monitors around the room began to flicker. A new transmission interrupted the energy graphs. It was an alien transmission, the same one they had heard before. A cold, distant voice echoed through the station's speakers, reverberating throughout the control center. "The payment is overdue. We are coming to collect." Kara and her allies froze at the sound of those words, their hearts racing. They finally understood. The alien core wasn't just a power source. It was a direct connection to an alien civilization, and now they were here to claim their debt. The control center plunged into an oppressive silence as the alien voice faded from the screens. The air seemed thicker, and the constant hum of the alien core now felt like a looming thread in the room. The holographic graphs continued to flicker, each showing increasingly erratic energy readings. Something was very, very wrong. Kara stared at the graphs, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what was happening. At first, she had thought it was just a simple energy collapse caused by the alien core's overload, but the situation was far more complex. It was now clear this wasn't just an energy mechanism. The core was alive, somehow adapting, reacting to the team's attempts at manipulation, like a creature resisting human control. Tarek, standing beside Kara, studied the readings with growing concern. His eyes darted from one graph to another, trying to find a pattern, a logic that could explain the core's unexpected behavior. "This is impossible," he murmured. "We've never seen anything like this. It's as if the core is recalibrating itself." "And now?" Yannick asked, his voice tense with nervousness. "If they're coming to collect something, what does that mean? What did Voss really do?" Kara took a step back, momentarily distancing herself from the holographic graphs to think. The situation was spiraling out of control, and the looming threat of an alien invasion hung over them like a sword about to fall. If they didn't act soon, Arcadia could become yet another pawn in an invisible war between civilizations beyond human comprehension. Marla, ever practical, broke the silence. "We need to figure out what they want from us. If there's a connection between this alien technology and what's happening here, then Voss wasn't just using illegal energy. He made a deal. Kara closed her eyes briefly, trying to process the thought. A deal, she repeated, almost to herself. Lila, her sister, had known more about the core than anyone. She had died trying to expose something, and now Kara finally understood what. Lila had discovered that the core wasn't just a generator. It was part of something much bigger. A promise made to an alien species in exchange for technology that Arcadia had been using without fully understanding. We need to find more information about this deal, Kara said, her voice filled with determination. Voss buried the details. But there are documents, files hidden deep in the station system. We need to know exactly what we're up against. With Yannick's help, the group began to dig into the deepest archives of Arcadia systems. Every security layer they bypassed revealed more dirty secrets about Voss's control and his shadowy alliances. For years, he had been hiding the failures of the alien core, diverting energy from the poorer sectors to ensure that the elite continued living in luxury while the lower levels struggled to survive. But these discoveries were only the tip of the iceberg. After nearly half an hour of searching, Yannick finally managed to access a set of encrypted files, marked with maximum classification. His heart raced. These files were hidden from even the highest levels of security. Voss didn't want anyone to see them. He opened the documents, and a series of old reports appeared on the screen. The first thing that caught everyone's attention was the date. These reports were over 30 years old. They showed communications between Voss and an external entity, an alien intelligence. Kara moved closer, her eyes widening as she read the words on the screen. They asked for people, she said, barely believing it. Voss's deal wasn't just to supply energy. He promised to deliver part of Arcadia's population in exchange for the use of their technology. Marla, standing beside Kara, clenched her fists, her face contorted with rage. He offered human lives as payment. He must have chosen the most vulnerable, Tarek murmured. People no one would notice if they disappeared. Kara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Now it made sense. Lila's death, the inexplicable system failures, the poorest zones of the station being ignored while the elite thrived. It was all part of the deal. Voss kept the core running by promising to deliver people, sacrificing Arcadia's inhabitants to maintain control of alien technology. This can't continue, Kara said, her voice full of resolve. We have to stop this. But how? Yannick asked, visibly shaken. If that transmission means they're coming, what can we do? We can't fight an alien civilization. Marla leaned over the console, staring at the files still open on the screen. We need to cut the connection to the core. If we shut the system down now, we might be able to sever the communication before they arrive. But if we cut the connection, Arcadia will lose most of its power, Tarek warned. The station won't survive long without the core. Kara looked around the control center, feeling the weight of every decision she was about to make. Leaving the core online meant that the aliens would come to collect what had been promised, human lives. Shutting down the core, on the other hand, could mean Arcadia's collapse, as much of the station depended on the energy generated by that technology. There was no easy choice. Kara stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the core's graphs. She knew the station was hanging by a thread, but she couldn't sacrifice human lives to maintain a technology that should never have been used in the first place. We shut down the core, she said firmly. We can't let them take anyone. Are you sure? Tarek asked. This could destroy Arcadia. If we do nothing, Arcadia's already doomed, Kara said. Voss condemned us when he made that deal. We have to stop this now, before more lives are lost. As Kara prepared to shut down the core, Yannick adjusted the security systems to ensure that the action couldn't be reversed by any automatic commands. The tension in the room was unbearable. The silence before the storm. The pulsing glow of the core filled the space with a vibrant, almost living energy. Kara typed in the final commands at the terminal, redirecting power to emergency systems as she prepared to cut off the core. Ready? She asked the group, her hands hovering over the controls. Everyone nodded, though uncertainty was written on their faces. They knew what they were about to do could have devastating consequences, but the alternative, allowing the aliens to take the lives promised by Voss, was unacceptable. Kara pressed the button. The sound of an electrical discharge filled the room, and the lights in the control center began to flicker. The core, once glowing intensely, started to lose power. The room grew darker as the energy flow diminished. The alien core, the centerpiece of Arcadia's entire system, was being slowly shut down. But instead of a complete collapse, something unexpected happened. Rather than simply losing power, the core began to disintegrate, emitting a soft white light that spread across the room. It was as if the core's very structure was dissolving, molecule by molecule, ceasing to exist. Tarek watched, his mouth agape. This shouldn't be happening. Marla took a step back, her eyes fixed on the core as it slowly vanished. What's going on? Kara, stunned, continued to watch as the alien core completely unraveled. When the light finally faded, only emptiness remained where the once powerful energy source had been. But, surprisingly, Arcadia was still standing. The station trembled slightly, but the total catastrophe hadn't occurred. We did it, Kara murmured, still in disbelief. But for how long? The group knew their fight was far from over. The alien core had been shut down, but Arcadia was now vulnerable, and the alien threat still loomed over them.